I had a little bit of follow up.
I saw that.
Yeah, I just want it was follow up I thought of when I was listening to the show that came out yesterday, and it was about the teachers. That would have been the last show. That would have been episode 50. It was about you were pretty adamant, and I 100% agree with you about how teachers need to, if it gets down to them, they need to be doing the right thing as well. Like we already ask a lot of our teachers, and I honestly don't think that teachers are respected the way that they should be respected. They're not revered. I think even maybe not respect is the right word, but they're not revered in the ways that they should be revered. Like teachers are a position that should be revered more. So I was in my head. I was thinking about, okay, I don't need to go down on this rant, but anyway, it made me think of the movie Stand By Me with Morgan Freeman, where he was the teacher that lost. He got fired because he did what he was supposed to do. He was the one that was locking the doors, keeping the drug dealers out. Now, whether you view drug dealers as bad guys these days, I don't know. There's some really family-oriented drug dealers that I know of, and that's a whole other 80s, 90s misconception that has, for me, has since been dispelled.
Yeah, along those lines, I got my first, I'll call it a pass the buck response on my complaints about the way the school system is handling things today.
Oh, yeah? Tell me more.
So at the end of the week, they send out a weekly check-in kind of survey, and so I filled it out this time and specifically put that I felt they were not doing the right thing and creating a healthy and safe environment in the wake of managing these types of incidents. And said either, the phrasing I used was either they are woefully naive or borderline incompetent with the way they are interpreting things. And the response I got back was basically, I'd be happy to speak with you further. Just know that our hands are tied. We're doing what the district's policies state we're supposed to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so I responded back pretty quickly and said, this is the type of response I expected. I hoped the administration would be more willing to do the right thing, but you can still be of some use to me and provide me with the preferably name and email, but contact information for the person or group or agency that could affect change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, I got a response with the phone number for the Board of Education, which was closed by the time I had a chance to try to call. So I'll try that tomorrow. But also got the email address for the superintendent. And so I sent an email outlining my similar concerns to him, and we'll see what kind of pass the buck response I get there.
Yeah. I do this pretty often with customer service on certain things, and I often I'll ask a thing and then they'll say, no, we can't do that thing, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Can you get the person on the phone who can make that decision? Well, nobody can make that. Well, I do know that if you go up high enough, there is somebody that can make that decision. I need you to say, I can do this, but I will not do this, or I need to talk to somebody who says, I can do this and I will not do this, or I will do this. So let's keep going. So
Yep, I figured I would. I mean, I knew that was the response I was going to get, just
Sure.
based on my phone conversation with the administration the week prior, just outlining what the policies and precautions were. And so I already expected it, but I wanted to still start with the closest to the problem. Maybe that's not quite the right phrasing. The closest to my particular problem, and work my way up.
yeah, there'd be times when I was the person in the place where somebody's like, well, I want to speak to the next person. And I'm like, if I could tell, I was like, hey, I know I can tell you don't like my answer. I can get somebody, I can get one of the managers to tell you the same thing, or maybe tell you something different that I don't know, that they have the ability to change. I don't know. But they might tell you the same thing I just told you. And so sometimes that went over well and sometimes not.
Yeah, I did add in the email to the superintendent, I closed it fairly, I'm not going to say ominously because it's not ominous, but foreshadowing that I don't plan to be quieted. 2 simple sentences. First was, I expect better. And the second was, I will continue to be vocal about this until changes are made.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's going to say something that they probably shouldn't say. And if you're recording it, other people, a lot of people could hear it. So there's that.
Yep.
So today's episode, more of the same, right?
I was thinking about that this afternoon. Yes, to answer the question, but I'm starting to question whether we might need to just rebrand the show and focus on political commentary and the COVID pandemic for a while, since that seems to be a very recurring theme.
Well, we actually have a name that covers everything because it's untitled.
I know. It's just one of those things that it was a fleeting thought. Like, there's no way I would want to change the branding. This fits perfectly with our range of conversations we could have anyway. It's just we've talked a lot more about those things than I thought we would.
Well, yeah, at this point we could have the subtitle to the show be the show where we bitch about the pandemic. And actually the pandemic is not even at this point, the pandemic isn't even, I don't want to say it's not the problem because it's the problem, but it has revealed a much bigger and more significant problem in our society.
And I actually might even go down the path that it's not the problem. It illustrates, it's a complication. It's
a catalyst to a much deeper issue. It's like,
right.
It's like, there's this whole idea that if somebody's in a relationship and they cheat, the cheating is not the problem. The cheating is a symptom of a deeper issue. There's a whole list of tropes of like, that's not the problem. It's just a symptom of a deeper issue. And whereas like the pandemic, it's a serious problem. It's a worldwide problem. It has exposed much deeper issues in our society. Just like Trump was a symptom of a much deeper problem in American society. This is along those lines.
And you actually could say that Trump was also a catalyst for exposing a number of different things, just like the pandemic has been, which I would say puts, as much as I hate to phrase it this way, puts Trump in a somewhat unique position as both being a catalyst for change and a symptom of the underlying problems.
Right. Where the pandemic happens regardless of what our society is, how our society actually is. But Trump doesn't get elected president if this deeper problem didn't exist.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I have the bullet point that I have for the show topic was that, this pandemic will actually eventually end. And I think I've referenced an article that talks about how does a pandemic end, and the article went on and said, well, there's like a scientific a medical scientific end to a pandemic when the disease is no longer affecting us, and it'll probably with enough people getting vaccinated and or sick, it'll eventually become more was it endemic? What's a step below a worldwide pandemic where it becomes like issues in local regions where it's not, the world over?
Endemic sounds correct, but I may just have my words, confused. I haven't thought about it along those lines recently.
So it's eventually going to turn into like, local hotspots around the world. And eventually, people will get sick, but it won't be, right now it's still pandemic. It's still worldwide pandemic proportions because during a surge like we're experiencing right now, hospitals are beyond capacity. Like they are stacking people up. And so, yeah, it's still a big deal. So it'll eventually over. For some people, it never started in their mind. So culturally, I think culturally it has ended in the United States because nobody is. Well, there's enough of the population that aren't taking it seriously or actually actively working against measures that would keep people safe. And so culturally, it's in this weird place, but it's by no means over. But the bigger issue is that the ignorance and evil and spiteful attitudes people have had about just basic human decency and protection is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, that's definitely the realm that I'm more concerned with at this point, having, a young child and not knowing what society is going to look like for him when I'm not around anymore.
Well, seeing you parent the way that you parent, I think he's going to be okay because, that's the whole thing is like you make sure that your kids are the kind of people that are going to affect, change in society in the right way. So whether I believe most parents want that for their children, whether, we've discussed like the issues that we have with our parents and so forth, but what person that has parents doesn't have issues with their parents? But ultimately, like you want to rear your kids so that they are successful in life and are good humans. And I see that happening with your child. I see that happening with my children. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was having a conversation the other day, sort of along the same lines, not quite the same conversation, but I made the comment that even though a lot of things are looking more optimistic as of the past week or so with the increase in vaccinations and things of that nature, I'm still very pessimistic on the outlook for where we're at. And I think that's mostly a generational thing. Like I feel like I'm more inclined to believe that we're not on as good a trajectory as we are, and it's by no means a good trajectory, but I don't believe it's even as good as it is, because at this point I'm more fearful of allowing that level of hope to creep in because of the underlying issues. I've seen so much that I would call some of it stupidity, some of it outright hatred, some of it outright misunderstanding of reality, maybe, for lack of better phrasing.
Oh, reality. No. Yeah, that's absolutely.
And that to me is so much more concerning and so much more prevalent than it feels like it ever has been. And I don't know how much of that is just because it's easier to be more vocal now versus where I might have experienced it before, and how much of it is just an upswing in people following the rhetoric.
So there's so I in my head, and I'd hate that I'd hate to be wrong, because I feel like time is going to present a part of the solution, but most of the folks that I see that are pro-Trump are quite a bit older than me. And so I don't know if that, what is the bulk of the Trump supporter demographic? Because like I'm just throwing in Trump supporter, unvaccinated,
I would
racist.
I would certainly say that there is a larger demographic of older people that fit that category, but I know a fairly large demographic of people approximately my age that also fit that category. And that spans a pretty large gap in general. And I also think that helps influence my less than positive outlook on things changing. But I do also think, just anecdotally, enough younger people are being involved with a proper grip on right and wrong to various extents, but at least well enough to identify things that are just outright completely wrong. I don't know. It's subjective enough. It's tough to really hone that in.
It is. But I think I had this thought about 20 years ago when the tail end of Generation X and the oldest millennials were entering the workforce. There was a whole lot of from the existing workforce, there was a whole lot of I want to pay you an experience, and I don't recognize that digital thing as something that I should pay you for because I can't hold it in my hands. And so obviously if it's digital, then you didn't have to work for it because computers are magic and the computer does all the work for you, et cetera. And so, you know this whole
I follow.
I feel like this is a bigger, badder, more ugly version of that.
I can see
I'm drawing a parallel here for sure.
I mean, it makes sense. I follow the comparison. I think the part that bothers me is that there have also been people younger than me who have seemed to be so strongly influenced by the older generation that those have created enough doubts about reality and logic and understanding science as a whole, or what a truthful or factual source might be, that I'm concerned. I think that's where the root of my concern actually stems from.
But at some point, I'm expecting the majority of people to basically overpower that group of people. So,
well,
we'll see.
And the other thing to keep in mind is we are in a region that is a bit extreme on that side. It's a lot tougher to gauge national sentiment in the Southeast because the Southeast is more like an island with regard to a lot of those facets of life. Maybe the Southeast and the Midwest.
Yeah, but the Southeast and the Midwest we aren't a large percentage of the population.
No, but I did see where shifting patterns in like movement, population growth, and expansion and everything, the Southeast is growing at a greater rate than it has for a while anyway. Now, how much of that is movement from other parts of the country and how much of that is population growth or immigration? Like I didn't see a breakdown. It was just an infographic showing that certain regions were growing quickly, and that included Atlanta. And Atlanta, we know, has become a bit better. I'll put it that way.
I mean, because of Atlanta, the state of Georgia's flipped in the last election.
Right.
So, I mean, the infiltration from other parts of the country that aren't so extreme, as well as immigration, are only going to help the South get out of this backward state.
Yeah, the only reason I think I'm so hesitant to think that that's a positive at this point is because I haven't seen a breakdown of whether the growth is from that or if it's from
people having
rural
babies.
Well, that or people moving from rural areas into the suburban areas. That could entirely be part of it too.
Yeah, it could. I noticed one of the bullet points that you put on here, like it really fits into the other ones that I had, and it was about the argument that's been an argument people have put forth that is not to your liking.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those, but
Me too.
There's one that keeps kind of circulating that just really gets under my skin.
Tell me.
And it's the idea of why should I do something because you were afraid.
Take a vaccine or put a mask on.
Or why should I stay home if you're afraid of the virus, being the general gist.
Yeah.
And number one, that's never been the focus of the argument anyway. It's been get a vaccine, wear a mask, maintain distance when you're in, social settings with other people, provide some level of common protections that everybody can do easily. It's never been stay at home. Now, I will add to that, because last episode I did specifically state, if you're not going to get a vaccine and you're not going to wear a mask in public places, then I think you absolutely should stay at home. And if you're not going to, then you are a part of the problem. And none of that has to do with fear. It has to do with the decency of caring about someone other than yourself.
Right. It has all to do with, because if you don't do that thing, it's not that I'm afraid, it's that if you don't do that thing, you're making the problem worse.
Yes.
I'm sure there's some logic. I'm sure there's at least one or two logical fallacies in this argument when it's put forth. But it's just
there are so many logical fallacies in this argument.
But it's just this thing where it's like the most. I don't know why I need to plan these words for myself, but it's like the dumbest give me liberty or give me death argument ever. I mean, it's just like you want to, when.
Well, it goes back to the same thing that we've talked about many times before, maybe not quite as bluntly. Name one thing, just one right, one privilege, one liberty, one anything that wearing a mask in indoor places takes away from you. Just one. You can't do it. It doesn't do anything. It literally only serves the purpose of helping reduce the transmission of viruses. That's it. It does not silence you, unfortunately, because I wish it could silence a lot of people at this point.
Yeah.
It does not muzzle you. I mean, technically it's the same argument, but still, it doesn't stop you from doing anything. It does not remove your right to choose to do something. What? Give me a valid argument, and you can't do it.
It's the exact same thing as no shirt, no shoes, no service. It's no different than that.
I bet there was probably an uproar when that became a big thing too. By
Maybe.
God, it's my right to wear a shirt, to either wear a shirt or not wear a shirt as I see fit. I can just imagine the same people making that argument.
Yeah, I've often wanted to wear just my mask around my genitals, just to make a point.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm double masking. I got one down here and one up here.
It confounds me how people can make that argument and think that it makes sense.
Well, that's the thing. They're not thinking. It's just reciting rhetoric. It's the same thing that they have been supporting. It's what makes them feel good. It's what makes them feel like patriots. It's what makes them feel like their lives matter when their lives don't actually matter. I looked. It made me think of. You made me think of that. Soliloquy in Fight Club, and in the middle of it, Tyler Durden is talking about we have no great war, no great depressions. Our great war is a spiritual war, and this is what really, I feel like this is the part that really made me. This is the line that really made me think about this, and it's like, their lives, or their Great Depression is their lives. They've all been raised on television that they believe that one day they'll be millionaires, movie stars, rock stars, and it's just not going to happen. And we've talked about how nobody is the people that are voting against their own interests are like, no, no, no. I'm one day going to be that where this makes sense for me.
Yeah, the other, I did like the reference to the quote. I thought about it. I didn't think about it before reading the bullet point, but when I read over it, it's like, oh, this makes sense. It's been too long since I've watched the movie. I think the other thing that really kind of drives it home again, another conversation that I was having this past week, one of the things that I've noticed about all of these same people, and this ties into the general theme of last week's episode, the one that released yesterday. None of them are trying to be better. There's no exploration of the other viewpoint. There's no understanding of why people are mad or why people are saying other things. There's only, this is my belief, by God. Somebody has written something up that helps summarize it. And as soon as you try to counter it or say anything that deviates from it, it's an immediate shutdown. And the whole point of being a better person is that you can have your belief, but you listen to the other side. You try to understand it. You try to wrap your head around it. That doesn't mean that you agree with it. Doesn't mean that you change your belief. But you at least come to understand what that other person is saying. That is one of the ways in which people prove through action that they are at least attempting to better themselves. No one that I have encountered who is either a Trump supporter or is anti-mask, even though those have been the same so far, but just in case there are different categories, or is anti-mask, or is anti-vaccine, has exhibited any quality that proves to me that it is anything other than obstinance and saying no because I don't want to. They're not listening to any opposing viewpoint. They're not trying to understand anything about those topics. It's just, this I like for whatever reason, and this is my answer, and it's final, and there's no reason to even talk about it. Quite frankly, that makes you a horrible person.
It does.
That's a good soundbite.
Speaking of rhetoric, I came across a bit from that asshat DeSantis, governor of Florida.
Yeah. I actually didn't listen to the soundbite yet. I forgot about it because I had a couple of other things come through, but I do have it pulled up to listen to after the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the edited or a clip just so you can drop it in if you want to. But it's just like, it doesn't even make sense. Politicians want to force you to cover your face as a way for them to cover their asses. Like, how does that even make sense?
Oh, it doesn't. That's just him trying to get some keywords in for searches.
Yeah, it just sounds. I mean, he gets applauded for saying bullshit like that, and it doesn't. I mean, it's like, let's not, like, you said the things that make me feel good, but we're not even going to think about like how it doesn't work. It's not. It's just a thing you say. It's just a thing you say because it makes you feel good and it sounds good. And speaking of which, in the past couple of weeks, I saw statistics on how much Governor DeSantis cares about the constituents in his state, and that is, he's been on various shows on Fox News about a dozen times in the past few weeks, and he has met with the head of the public health department in Florida 0 times.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
It's he's grandstanding, and because he's saying the thing, he's following in line with the rhetoric that a certain group of people like, a group of people that say that they are for, hardworking, decent folks. I mean, the irony is becoming difficult to accept.
Let's even though this wasn't part of the show, let's mention something there real quick, because if any recent president has exhibited any positivity toward decent, hardworking folks, it's been Biden. Hands down. I mean, if you think about union workers and blue-collar jobs, he has absolutely focused on that segment of the population as worth his time and attention. I haven't seen that from any other president than in recent memory while I've been paying attention to it. So, you know, that it's kind of blurry during the Reagan and Bush and Clinton era because I wasn't paying as much attention. So they may have done something. But Trump doesn't care at all about blue-collar workers or white-collar ones, for that matter.
No.
So how did he get any kind of foothold with that group? And this is why I wanted to kind of delve into it. It's not about the mentality of work. It's that group of people tends to latch on to the propaganda material faster for various reasons. And so making it sound good is more important than the actual substance. And that sums up the 4 years that we had to deal with Trump in office. Trying to make things sound good, which in my opinion he failed at, but obviously other people felt differently, was far more important than substance. I think that pretty well translates into the same drivel that we see posted that was talking about there's no level of thought to. Making it sound good is far more important than the substance.
Right.
Sure, it sounds great to say, I am standing up for my rights, standing up for my liberties. I am not afraid. Ha ha ha. There's no substance there. It's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't necessarily mean to derail it, but I had that thought and wanted to kind of, it flowed well. I liked it.
No, I agree. It is
It's baffling in general. Like, I think this is the big problem that a lot of us have.
Yeah, it's because it's like these people are not stupid people. Like, you have to, I mean,
you certainly can't take the mindset that 50% of Americans are stupid.
No.
I mean, granted, you could, but I don't think that, I think trying to boil it down to something that simple is ignorant.
Yeah. It's not stupidity. The problem is not stupidity, you know.
It's tough to go back to it without calling it stupid, though, isn't it?
It is stupid. I mean, like, what they are exhibiting the nature of what a stupid person would do. But it is like you said, you can't say it feels far-fetched to say, well, 50% of Americans are stupid people. But I was like, why are 50% of Americans being so stupid? I mean, there's willful, we start saying things like willful ignorance.
Well, because I have thought a lot about it for a while, I have a couple of theories. I also saw a nice write-up that tried to answer the same question, which also maybe is more forefront in my mind and why I have theories. But realistically, if you think about the level of just differences in I'm going to call it rationalizations because that's what it is to that individual person, even though as an outsider it is completely irrational and I don't understand the rationalization. But looking at the number of different narratives, that's a better way to put it, looking at the number of different narratives to provide some level of explanation for decisions and actions, you start to see a pattern, and that pattern tends to revolve around there being just enough credibility to the way something is portrayed to plant a seed of doubt. And once that's there, it seems to be difficult for a lot of people to then differentiate between a source that is legitimate and a source that is either intentionally misleading or is inflammatory by design. And that feels like the overall problem.
Yeah. So I don't know if you happen to see the video that I sent to you or the one I linked in our notes.
I didn't look at the link in the notes yet.
Yeah, so there's some misinformation. I've seen this in some arguments, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I've seen where some people have said to me, masks don't make a difference. They're showing, like, scientists are showing masks don't make a difference. I'm like, no, but they do, and we know that they do. I'm thinking, what the hell, like, tell me what your source is, and of course they don't want to cite their source, and I came across a video where, like, on Fox News, they're showing a JAMA article, Journal of American Medical Association. They're saying, I mean, they have, like, on their screen, they have all the text, like, pulled out from the article, and they're showing the line where it says, masks don't make a difference. But if you read the title of the article and the actual text that's on screen from the article, it's like N95 masks compared to surgical masks don't make a difference. Not all masks don't make a difference relative to no mask at all. No. It's specifically the N95 and the surgical mask. It isn't any more protective than the surgical mask. And they're, like, taking that and turning it into an argument. Masks aren't effective at all. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I saw something similar to that early on. Because it was.
I mean, you put that on the air. You need to be that's got to be an FCC violation.
Well, it depends. Was it during a news segment or was it during one of the opinion segments?
Why does it matter?
Well, because that's how they get around the FCC violations or other restrictions. If it's a news segment, they're bound to a certain level of honesty. If it's one of their shows, like with certain people who I will not name because I don't want to even give them that much visibility, if it's one of those shows, those are technically not news. Even though they've done everything in their power to portray it as news, everything about the show, if you look at all the fine print and everything else, it's specifically, this is not
it's entertainment.
A news program. Yes.
It's entertainment. Yeah, but see, that is a huge problem.
I agree. I'm not arguing it. I'm just explaining how they've gotten around it.
But it's still, like,
it's dishonest and it's immoral. Maybe not immoral, unethical.
I mean,
it's completely unethical. Everything about Fox News business practices and programming at this point is unethical.
Yeah. I mean, this country has made a huge mistake in not correcting the fourth estate. So, the fourth branch of government.
Yeah, I followed it, but for the sake of those who may not understand the reference, if you want to just give a quick explainer.
I don't even remember who referenced it, but I mean, it's been around for as long as this country has been. But the fourth branch of government is the media. It is their ability to expose and bring transparency to what the other three branches of the government are doing. And I'll have to.
And the assumption is that it's going to be objective and honest.
Yes, and at one point it was objective and honest, but I don't think that's been in our lifetime. It's slowly trended towards corporate takeover. I mean, it's experienced a corporate takeover. Every single one of those, every single news institution has experienced a corporate takeover. There are certain shows that I think are less biased than others, but even a bias is not a problem as long as you're reporting fairly. Like, I think there's certain documentaries like, okay, I know that when you watch a Michael Moore documentary, it's extremely, it's definitely left of center, but facts are still facts. Now, if you don't present all the facts, there's something unethical about that. But yeah, there's a big problem here.
Yeah, I saw something. I'm going to reference something Renee Ritchie posted because I thought it was a brilliant, simplistic way to approach something. If you're concerned about judging the credibility of a source, and this has to be something that has a wide range of topics, pick a subject that you know well, that you are an expert in, and read 3 of the articles that they have posted about that subject and see how factual they are compared to what you know. You can pretty much be assured that the rest of the reporting on the other subjects that you don't know about is going to be the same general level of accuracy. I liked that. It's a nice, simple way to explain the concept to a layperson. Because I get that most people aren't going to do what I do. And most people, well, I think most people should, but most people overall, there's no real reason to go as detailed as I do when I'm looking into a subject. That's fine.
I don't go as detailed as you do.
And that's fine. Overall, it doesn't serve much of a purpose other than I get a more granular level of understanding on what is factual versus what is theoretical versus what is editorial. And that's something that I like to know. Overall, though, you don't really have to distinguish between what is factual and what is theoretical most of the time. The only thing you really have to distinguish between is what is reported as news versus what is editorial analysis. Because as long as you can somewhat differentiate those or understand the difference between them at least, you can pretty much read any news source and get the rough facts of the situation. And so, as a general rule, if you can at least be, 80-90% confident that you can pick out the differences from source A between those two things, then by all means, focus on source A. But if you don't feel like you can, and you need to compare like source A and source B, go that route. Like, everybody needs to be able to interpret and decipher things on their own in a way that they can understand the difference between them, right? The problem is most people aren't doing anything even remotely close to that. What they're doing is picking a source that aligns with what their views are.
You want to be in an echo chamber.
Right. Cognitive bias at its root core, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what we were discussing prior to that little tangent, but that alone explains so much about the stuff that I've seen over the past 6-8 months that has just really irritated me on a level that I didn't think words could irritate me.
Yeah. The other day I was saying to a friend of mine, I was just like, if you're in the hospital or you come to the hospital because you're having complications due to COVID-19 and you could have gotten the vaccine, but you didn't get the vaccine, why should they let you? I mean, I know there's a ethical reason that you have to be admitted into the hospital, but why? Like, where do we draw the line?
I certainly get the train of thought. I saw something that was written up the other day that I think goes along the same lines and kind of explains it maybe in a little bit more objective term. If you are rejecting the advice of medical professionals with regard to the vaccines, then you need to reject medical professionals wholeheartedly for everything. Don't go with anything like cancer, diabetes, flu, COVID, doesn't matter. If you're going to pick and choose what you listen to medical professionals on, you're doing it wrong. It's either you trust medical professionals and you go to them for guidance on medical issues, or you don't, and you stay out of the way. I get that that's a bit of an extreme argument, though. Not that I agree with it, or disagree with it, for that matter. It's more gray than we would like for it to be. And it's because of things like the proliferation of misinformation on things such as what the vaccine can and can't do, what it means to be approved under an emergency use order versus the full approval that was just received yesterday. There are a lot of things that are legitimate questions, but the problem is that those people who are holding out aren't seeking out answers from the sources they should be seeking out answers from. They're not asking their doctor about it. They're not getting clarification from medical professionals. They're getting info from all these other sources. And if that's your go-to, then that needs to be your go-to for everything. Why are you picking this topic to choose to believe some politician or some random minister or some internet post versus going and having a conversation with your doctor? How stupid do you have to be to follow that train of logic? And that is no excuse for it, absolute 100% stupidity. If I have a medical question, I'm going to ask a medical professional. If I have a political question, I'll ask a politician. Why did we get to this point where people are confusing who to go to ask about something?
I don't know. And I think here, I want to make a comment that I thought while recording and definitely while listening to episode 50, and that was if you don't feel good with the advice that your doctor gave you, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, get a fourth opinion. At some point, you're going to, if you get 4 opinions, I'm pretty sure the consensus is going to be fairly consistent. But we definitely talked on episode 50 with the expectation that your doctor is in line with the rest of the medical, or the majority of the medical community. There are some doctors that are not, and it's important to understand understand what to get a good consistent answer if you feel like the answer you're getting is not the answer that you think is correct. Because there is not everybody is perfect.
That's a fair point. I mean, there is a reason that most physicians, when talking about fairly invasive procedures, will tell you, they will be the first to tell you, by all means, get a second opinion. Let's not assume that I am 100% infallible. They won't say it necessarily that way, but they will recommend that if you would like, pursue a second opinion, take some time to think about it, that kind of thing. That's not unheard of at all. There's a reason second and third opinions exist. Because sometimes one doctor might not get it right. And
that's true.
And that's same of any person in any field. What I can tell you, though, is that at this point, many people in the medical community have absolutely no compassion for the stupidity of the choices that you are making to not at least engage in active conversations about whether you should get the vaccine.
Right. I mean, it's like if I remember I had a doctor, he's like, you need to do these things to be healthy. And if I don't do those things, okay, I'm not healthy. I remember my dad had a patient, morbidly obese, and he weighed in excess of 600 pounds. And my dad asked him, what's a typical meal for you? And he's like, he described a meal that like a person like you or I might eat. I eat way more calories than I need, but so maybe a standard meal that in a 2,000 calorie day diet. My dad, he's looking at him, was like, this guy's no, like I don't believe him, but I'm not gonna call him a liar to his face, but come to find out, the guy would like eat several pizzas for lunch. Like I'll order like 3 pizzas and have that's my lunch or whatever. It's a lot of food. But the thing is, like my dad was giving him, this is what you have to do to become healthy. And if you don't, you're going to be back here more and more often. And if the person doesn't do it, it's only going to hurt him because that's happening in his body. But now, not only are folks potentially hurting other people, they're hurting the medical profession. They're hurting the medical professionals that are in there. They are hurting everyone in their community. And now they're overwhelming the medical institutions around the country because there's just so many of them. There were about there are dozens of doctors in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, that walked out in protest yesterday. They said about 100. They estimated about 100 doctors in the hospital walked out in protest, and the protest was they all stopped working. They went outside, and they said, "Go." Their message was get vaccinated. You are hurting us. You are hindering our ability to care for people. The general consensus, the overwhelming consensus among the, not just general, the overwhelming consensus among the medical community is the vaccine is safe. It will protect you from life-threatening complications of COVID-19. There is no reason not to get the vaccine unless you have a specific medical condition. And there are people around the world that want the vaccine and don't have access to it. For people in this country that can get the vaccine and don't, you are the scum of the earth. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.